Welcome to the Tin Biscuit podcast. On today's podcast, we have two people. We're having a group chat. It took a bit of time to get sorted, but we're all here. So we've got Catherine and Sarah on, and they've come to talk about animal rights. Welcome, the pair of you.
Hiya, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
That's all right. You was both meant to be on yesterday, but there was a problem. Do you want to tell us what happened?
Yeah, we were at a protest against Stericycle in Bournemouth, which is a weekly thing, and it was an all-day protest. And yeah, the police did turn up towards the end. I think there was 14 of them. Was that right, Sarah? 14 police who came?
There was certainly more of them than us. I think by the end there was 9 of us. Yeah, 14 of them. So we were definitely outnumbered. And yeah, it got a bit, it was just a bit of a hectic day. So sorry about cancelling on you, but yeah, we were a bit preoccupied.
That's fine. You said you was it a laboratory?
No, so Stericycle is one of the suppliers of MBR Acres. So they actually incinerate the bodies of the dead puppies from either the labs or from MBR Acres itself. So MBR Acres is basically a breeding ground, I guess, a company that breeds 2,000 puppies a year for the animal testing industry. So you see Stericycle vans coming in and out of MBR Acres, sometimes because MBR actually bleed the dogs. They have a license to bleed the dogs out on site. So obviously they need to do something with those dead bodies, and Stericycle are the ones who take them away, and they're a waste management company and they incinerate them. I think they also have some contracts, I'm not 100% on this, with some labs as well, so they may do the same in labs nearby. So yeah, one of the big parts of the campaign is to apply pressure on these companies who, without these contracts, would be ethical. They do a lot of ethical waste management, they do hospitals, clinical waste. But yeah, just getting them to drop that contract with MBR Acres is such a big part of the campaign. So yeah, we're putting pressure on Stericycle with them being so close to us in Southampton and Bournemouth. So I'm in Southampton, and Sarah's in the Bournemouth area as well. So
yeah, because we had Camp Beagle on, and they've like got a legal camp outside like MBR Acres. That's Huntington in near like sort of Cambridgeshire way.
Yeah. So MBR Acres, yeah, that's in Cambridgeshire. But the sort of campaign that we're involved in is targeting, like Kat said, it's the suppliers, and our local supplier is the Stericycle. And the idea is if all of the suppliers refuse to work with MBR Acres, if nobody's supplying them, or in this case taking away their waste, they won't be able to operate. They won't be able to keep operating as a business. So it's kind of dismantling the business one supplier at a time. And yeah, Stericycle is the one we're really sort of focusing on at the moment. And I think we're getting there.
Sorry, you dropped out a bit there, Sarah.
Oh, I don't know how much you heard. Sorry, I was just saying.
No.
I think we're getting there with Stericycle. So again, if we can sort of stop these suppliers from working with MBR Acres, if nobody is willing to work with them, they won't be able to operate. You know, they won't be viable as a business, and that's how we will close this place down ultimately.
Because BOC works with MBR Acres as well, don't the BOC, like the gas company?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually another one that we're involved with. It's Southampton Animal Action. So we have 2 BOC or BOC. I'm not sure which one it is now. But yeah, we often call them BOC, but maybe people do call them BOC as well. So we have 2 areas in the Hampshire area. So we have Totton and Hythe. So we're often there a little bit less regularly than the Stericycle protests, which are weekly in Bournemouth at least. But we try and get to one of the sites in Southampton, usually about once a month. So Southampton Animal Action is a new group. We only formed in October, so we've only just started up those protests really since sort of December. So they're quite recent.
Yeah, I just want to take you back to, because I have heard about why do they actually bleed the beagles, and I didn't realise that they actually bled them at Camp Beagle site, like sort of MBA. Because what's the reason for them bleeding them out there?
Well, I believe it's to sell their blood and their organs to labs, I think. I don't know if Sarah has anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Yeah, they, you know, they're just seen as commodities. Their body parts are seen as products. So they will take, you know, a puppy kind of 16 weeks old, bleed them dry of their blood and sell the blood. You know, this is what this place does. It's horrific. And this is why we're so against it and trying to stop it. It's so immoral what's going on there.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to go down there because I'm like going to do a bit of filming and that, but I don't know if I'll be able to control myself because I was telling Sarah, Catherine, before we started the podcast that I can't really watch the Camp Beagle videos no more because it upsets me too much. So it's I like especially the video with the dogs' masks on. That's just horrible. It's just
yeah. It's very upsetting. And when you go there to actually, because there's one thing seeing videos and pictures when you're there and you can hear them, you know, they're just meters away from where you're standing, the other side of the fence. It really, I think when we went up a few months ago, it really, well, I can probably say for both of us, it really affected us, didn't it? It was so upsetting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for that day, even on the drive back, just feeling like the impact of being there and hearing the cries of the dogs. And we say this all the time at the protest. We say, you know, we've been to MBR, we've heard the cries of the dogs, and that is not a lie at all. We've both been there, we've heard it, and just it feels quite helpless because there's nothing you can necessarily do immediately to help those dogs. But obviously it does drive that motivation for the wider campaign. You know, every time yesterday, you know, me and Sarah were about to head out for sort of 5.5 hours to the protest. It's freezing cold, but you've got that in the back of your mind, that feeling that you had when you were at MBR Acres, and that sort of drives us on, I think, and motivates us to get out there and carry on the fight.
Yeah, you and like you said, people don't think you're lying. Do like people sort of think you're sort of making it up when like you tell them that, well, like, you know, we can hear the dogs. Have they got a bit of sort of disbelief in that?
I don't know if they've got a disbelief. We just say it quite a lot. We often on the sort of megaphones when we're at protests, we say similar things. And I don't know whether it can be easy to sort of dismiss them after a while because we're saying, you know, the same statistics, the same things. I mean, Sarah's probably a bit better than me at mixing it up with what she says. But yeah, I don't know whether they haven't directly said, you know, you're lying about it. We have had some people at Stericycle just saying, oh, we don't really believe the dogs are suffering. That happened actually, I think, last week, which it's, I think that there was we discussed, you know, potentially bringing some footage, showing people in real life, because I think sometimes it's easy to ignore the facts or easy to ignore the extent of the suffering of those beagles until you maybe hear or see it for yourself. And if people aren't going to MBR Acres, then, you know, a video might help them with that. I think with any sort of animal suffering, it's easy to ignore. It's, you know, it's behind the scenes, it's in secret a lot of the time, so you can go about your day and not really think about it. But yeah, no one specifically from Stericycle has said they don't believe us. But yeah, it's definitely something we'd like to bring further with some footage, maybe at the protest.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of sort of doing a documentary / film sort of thing about like him, like sort of and then do that. But it's just getting down there for work and that, but it's just a disgusting sight. I can't believe it still goes on. I was saying I thought all this died down in like, I mean, I can remember it from the 80s and early 90s. Then it sort of faded away back in like 90s. Or I say faded away, sort of got took out of sort of the media. But I was really surprised to see this. So I've only been aware of this site for maybe 6 weeks now.
Yeah, people just don't realise. They really don't realise the sheer amount of animal testing that's still happening in this country. And the statistics are that only 1.2% of those animals are dogs. But that actually means that's 3,749 dogs being used in labs. This was 2023, that number is for. I don't think we've got the numbers yet for last year. But So even, 1.2% of animals only are dogs. This is their own statistics, mind you. That still equates to 3,749 dogs used in 2023. So you can imagine the vast number of animals being used every year just in the UK alone. So yeah, obviously we're focusing on dogs, but it's just thousands and thousands and thousands of animals in general being, subjected to these experiments, and people just don't know. People just don't realise what happens still.
I mean, it's not only the dogs you hear inside this MBR Acres place. You can actually hear them when they come out in the vans to transport them to these other destinations across the UK, can't you?
Yeah, we actually have some recordings as well if the dog's being transported, or some of the dogs being transported, which is, quite upsetting. We were chatting to people at the protest, and we didn't actually play those sounds yesterday at the protest because occasionally we've put them on a USB and put them into our megaphones, and people do say, including protesters often say, that is quite upsetting to listen to on a constant basis. But sometimes you've just got to put these things aside for the benefit of actually showing it to other people, I guess. When people hear those cries, they want to act. They can hear that the dogs are suffering and scared and frightened. So hopefully it's a motivation for people to actually get out there and do something about it.
I think it just doesn't go across with that. I just think across the whole society now, people don't like to speak about the reality of what actually happens. And I think there's a part of people that will just say, I don't want to know about that, because facing the truth some times is more upsetting than not knowing.
Absolutely. I think go on, Sarah. Sorry, go on.
No, so I was just going to say, especially with animal testing, with vivisection, it's such a horrible big thing when it comes to your diet, or I don't know, what you wear, or these sorts of things. That's all stuff that we have a lot more control over, whereas with animal testing, it's a hard one to know what you can do about it. It's a hard one to really sort of realize or think about how you can help these animals. It is easy to feel so helpless, and this is why we protest. It's, at least it feels like we're doing something, but it's a difficult thing to think about, because I think there's less that the average person can actually do to help these animals.
Yeah, because I was speaking to John from Camp Beagle. I'll go back to you, sir, when you said about animal testing, and it's a certain percentage with dogs. He was saying the test on monkeys as well. These monkeys come from apparently legitimate sources, but I've also heard John said they might just come from the wild as well. So that puts a different spin on it. And they come through Manchester Airport.
Yep. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? People don't realise. But there's a lot of thousands of dogs, thousands of monkeys. Sorry, Kat.
No, go for it. You're fine.
No, go on. I don't know what I was about to say. I was
No, that's all right. I thought you'd stopped. So basically, I was going to say there's a lot of campaigns, and sometimes they're not UK based, but to get airlines to stop transporting monkeys, because some of them are caught sort of from the wild, or primates more generally caught from the wild. They're shipped across on particular airlines, and then sent to labs around different countries. So there are some campaigns more widely to get airlines to stop doing that, basically to put a sort of boycott on transporting primates for medical research. So yeah, that's all I was going to say on top of that.
What sort of other animals besides, obviously, I suppose everyone knows mice, rats, monkeys, and dogs? What other cats? What other animals do they use? Do they use cats at all?
They do, yeah, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs. So the majority of animals in this country are your rats, your mice, birds as well. But obviously these are still large animals like that. But these are still all animals capable of feeling fear and pain and suffering. And going back to the vivisection industry's own numbers, they say they have a scale of how they measure how severe or horrible an experiment is, and so their own numbers say that only 3% of animal tests cause what they describe as extreme pain or distress. And you think, okay, 3%, that doesn't sound too bad. But when you realize how many experiments are happening, that mere 3% equates to 80,400 individual experiments that cause pain or distress, severe pain or distress. So even their own numbers, even when they're trying to say, oh, it's not that bad, when you find out the sheer scale of it, you know, that is a hell of a lot of, you know, severe pain and distress that's being caused to all sorts of animals. So not just dogs and monkeys, but all the other animals as well that are equally capable of feeling these emotions that we shouldn't be inflicting upon them.
So because like they give pretty thin arguments to say, oh, it's for this, it's for that. What sort of apart from it's for like vaccines for people, because like they even say do it for the veterinary sector as well. They like sort of give all these excuses. What like do you say to people? Well, if we didn't have this, we wouldn't have this vaccine. We wouldn't have this. We wouldn't have that.
There's lots of alternatives to animal research. A lot of the time animals are used because they're considered cheaper. So there's a lot of alternatives being developed, but I think it's also important to note, so I would be, and I know Sarah, I hope I'm speaking on behalf of Sarah here too, that I'd be against animal experiments regardless, because I don't believe in using animals for human gain, regardless of the outcome. But actually 92% of experiments fail. So the ones that work in animals, 92% fail in humans, and that increases to even larger statistics when you consider particular diseases. So I think when you look at cancer research, I think it increases to around 96, 97%, and in Alzheimer's research it increases to 99%. So those experiments that originally worked in animals fail in humans because we are biologically very different to animals. So even if, you know, I'd still be against it even if they worked, because I just don't believe in using animals for human gain. But you know, we're torturing animals literally, and that's not too strong of a word, but what is the benefit that we're seeing? It's a very, very minimal benefit. So I think there's charities like Animal Free Research who are working with scientists to develop sort of more human relevant models. And I think that needs to be, you know, we need to get more funding behind those. And eventually, you know, hopefully soon, we need to be moving towards, you know, eradicating it completely. And I really hope we see that very soon.
You say that the word torture was a bit too much. I like think the word torture is too less. I like sort of think it goes beyond torture. And I was saying to Sarah, so ever since I got my dog Peanut, I've been more and more drawn to this. Well, not drawn to it, but have more feelings towards animals like cows and pigs and everything like that. So I can definitely see it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I absolutely do not think torture's too strong of a word, and I'm glad you think the same, and I'm sure Sarah agrees too. I think some people who don't know might, you know, think, oh, is that too strong of a word? But I think when you really look into what's happening to these animals, of course it isn't. It is absolutely torture, or worse. And I think what you said as well about, you know, having that I guess empathy with other animals, I think that's key to our campaign as well. So obviously a lot of the you know, the MBR suppliers campaign and the Camp Beagle campaign focuses on dogs, but we're hoping that people who haven't yet made that connection to other animals can do, because, you know, if this is happening to dogs, then we recognize that it's wrong, and we recognize that, you know, using them in this way is wrong. Hopefully people can extend that compassion to other animals and make that connection to other animals too. So we're hoping that happens. You know, a lot of people say they're dog lovers, so it's a good way to get them in, but then, you know, the wider benefit is that they maybe make that connection to other animals too.
Yeah, I just want to go back to, because like people might ask why they use beagles. From what I understand, it's because, like, you know, they're quite good dogs, they're quite trusting, they're quite docile, they're quite like humans, and that's one of the major factors why the experimental bastards use them.
Yeah, that's exactly why. Yeah, you've summed it up. They're docile, they're trusting, they're just lovely. It's a lovely breed of dog, and that's unfortunately why they breed them.
Because they're a hunting dog, weren't they? And like sort of originally, I think was
well, this is a bit of a tangent, but yeah, they are still sometimes used for hunting as well. but obviously as pets, they're lovely animals.
It's weird. Can I ask you, and I mean, it's up to you guys if you like want to say, but could you give us some examples of what experiments they actually do, just so people are like aware of it?
Yep. So obviously we've talked about bleeding them for their blood. Their organs are cut out. They're used in the inhalation experiments, where they're forced to wear masks.
Is that the video where, like, they've got them black masks, they're all separate? Wasn't that one of the videos from the American MBR that was on Capita?
Yeah, but they recently built an inhalation unit in Cambridgeshire as well. So this is not something.
Oh, they've got one at MBR Acres, have they?
Yep. So this isn't something that's just happening abroad or something that happened in the 70s. It's happening now. It's happening in the UK. But they also inject them. I saw a phrase that's really stuck with me, and it said that they subject them to these lethal doses through any possible anatomical route. So you can imagine what that means. It's down their throats, it's through their skin, it's up their assholes, it's everywhere, it's everything, everywhere. And it's just absolutely appalling, So I've probably missed some stuff out. But yeah, just all sorts of horrible experiments in any method that they can to these animals.
I think the mask one is the most upsetting, and that's just because there was one of the dogs that tries to paw it off. I relate that to well, Peanut, and also my brother's dog, that when they were at that puppy age and sort of still up to maybe 3 years old, they're like still curious, they still just think like all they want to do is play and like get love, and then they're brought into this world and it's it's quite upsetting, to be fair.
It's terrible, isn't it? But yeah, they're force-fed substances as well. And not to upset you, but it can result in also, vomiting, internal bleeding, damage to their organs. They have seizures, and ultimately, none of these dogs make it out alive. It's not like some of them die. None of them survive, and this isn't short, sharp acts of cruelty. This is going on for weeks and weeks for some of them before they die.
And it's all they've ever known as well, isn't it? So they never get to see or live a normal life. They go from being bred at MBR in horrible conditions where when we were there, Sarah, I remember us hearing the sounds, the constant crying, the constant barking. I imagine that's 24/7 because it didn't stop while we were there. And then when they're old enough, they get shipped off. If they're not bled to death on site, they are shipped off to labs, and then again experiencing that torture that you just described, and they don't get to ever experience that sort of human affection or love or know anything else. So I think that's the really sad part about it, is that they're dying without experiencing any sort of joy in life.
Do you say like they don't experience human contact, which obviously they do to a sense of a degree where people do what they do, but that's not human contact, that's just fucking being evil. Have you actually spoke to anyone who's like worked at BR? Have they actually come forward and said, I've just left, or have you had any whistleblowers?
I haven't personally talked to anyone who has, but I believe that people have been into these places sort of either they've been in legitimately working and then have quit, realizing what the job is. And I think this is actually a good point, because this is reminded me where I was several months ago looking for a job, and just looking for a new job, and on my job search, LabCorp came up. And it said something about, it was a job advert for one of the labs, basically, and it said, you must have compassion for animals and be compassionate about their needs. And I just thought, wow, someone could go into this job thinking it's going to be like caring for animals, just being completely blind to what the job actually entails. And I think this has happened quite a lot. Again, I personally don't know them, but they've gone into it not realizing what it is, and then come out and quit, and then spoken out about what's actually going on. So yeah, I don't know whether Sarah has anyone she knows who's worked there, but
I don't quite know what I'd say to somebody if I did know that they'd worked there. But yeah, people have spoken out, and these sorts of places, people have deliberately taking jobs there just to expose them, and I can't even imagine the courage and the guts to do that. But no, I've not personally spoken to anyone that's worked there.
I mean, if I went into work to a lab, I'd like make sure I do my research and find out what lab it is. So I'd like people who say, oh well, just do your research and don't go work there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
other jobs. Yeah, definitely.
It's not an excuse, is it? But I could see it just based on this description. I remember sending it through to Sarah, like a screenshot of it, and it was just crazy how they'd sort of sold this job. So yeah, absolutely, people should do their research 100%. But I can still see people maybe going in quite naive to what it entails, and then suddenly realizing, yeah.
Do they get a big life lesson then to do your research?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I mean, how hard is it when you go to these places to keep you calm? Because you mentioned you was at a protest yesterday, and the police turned up. Is there been an occasion where people lose the temper with the police, or are the police quite sympathetic to the cause? Because obviously not all policemen, policemen and policewomen, are going to be against animal testing of they're going to have dogs, so they'll feel what you're feeling. I'm sort of trying to say, and they've got to be in a neutral position. Did they ever say, we do agree, but you can't do this like this?
Yeah, I think some of them, it really varies with police, I would say. I think some of them have been quite reasonable. I think a lot of the time they say, we, like you just said, they say we can't have an opinion on this, at least not in our role, because they're there to sort of uphold the law, so to speak. But yeah, I think there's definitely been instances where I don't know where that they've sort of used, like yesterday, for example, they were trying to say that we were breaking a particular legislation, but we weren't. We looked up this legislation and we weren't in breach of it. So I think they sometimes.
Which I can't even say the word. What was you breaking that they said?
It was something about being on NHS land, because this Stericycle is part of the hospital in Bournemouth, basically. So it was some legislation around that, and we weren't familiar with it when they said it. And at the end of the protest, we did look it up, and we don't believe we were in breach of it at all. So yeah, I mean, there are probably people who are sympathetic to it. I mean, we've had it at the BOC protests as well, or the BOC protests, where we've had security come up to us, and most of the time they say, oh yeah, we can't really, we have to remain neutral. But once they've seen our placards with quite graphic images on them, or heard the sounds of the puppies sort of crying on the memory stick that we've got on the USB drive, you can tell it hits them, you can tell it does impact them. And I think often you can see it through just speaking to people.
I mean, it doesn't hit it doesn't hit the security at MBR Acres, does it?
No, I just think they're so probably immune to that noise now. I just don't know what sort of person can work there, but maybe, I don't know actually. Maybe they have a very high turnover of staff. I can only imagine they do, because I can't imagine getting used to that noise. But people do work there, so who knows?
Well, no, because it's like an annoying and upsetting noise, because obviously they're in pain, and it's a bit like a baby's crying. They actually need something.
Yeah.
I didn't think trespassing was against the law. I thought trespassing was a civil offence. So how could the police say you was breaking this, or is the NHS got different laws for their sites?
I'm not hugely clued up on the legislation. We have a few people in our group who know a lot more than I do. But when we looked it up, I think it was around causing disruption on an NHS site. But we did argue, we're not disrupting. At this point, we had no megaphones. We were literally just sat doing a silent protest, because actually we found that quite effective at this site now. Because Stericycle will not open the gates while protesters are outside. So there's actually no need to be loud. There's no need to use the megaphones. We can just be there, and we found that to be effective. So that was our argument. We're not being disruptive. Yes, we're peacefully protesting, and that's it. And I think they did realise that in the end. They didn't. At first they said, we can remove you. We have the power. but they were actually waiting for confirmation for that from someone else, and they never got that confirmation to my knowledge, hence why we carried on our protest. So it varies. I mean, yesterday was a little bit, I'd say, different to normal. We've had police come before and been, very, very nice to us, just told us, as long as you're peacefully protesting, that's fine, not a problem, and then left shortly afterwards. So it really just does vary with police, security, etc., with who you're dealing with.
Yeah. When people pass these sites and see it, do you ever get any curiosity and people coming over to see what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Had quite a few yesterday. Yeah, I think people see us to start with, and they think, oh, what are they doing? People have this idea of protesters, don't they? Get a job, go have a wash.
Yes.
But then once they realise what we're actually doing, and maybe once they speak to us and realise that we are actually nice, normal people, I think we can change their perceptions. It's just unfortunate that we're in the position where we feel like we don't really have any other choice but to do this sort of protest. People say, well, why don't you do petitions, or have you written to your MP? Have you done this? Have you done that? And it's like, yes, we've done all of that. And that hasn't actually got us very far, So we feel like we're in the position where we have to do these sorts of pressure campaigns. We have to do these sorts of legal and lawful protesting, because this is what makes these companies like Stericycle actually, listen to what we're saying. And this is how we actually make change happen, by, affecting their bank balances and, turning their business upside down for a few hours a week. So this is what they actually listen to, unfortunately.
Yeah, you say peaceful process, which is
direct action.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just going to say direct action works, and it's absolutely peaceful, and I guess going back to are people interested? There's actually a construction site opposite this particular Stericycle that we protest at, and they're always very excited by us being there. So I think they are curious, and we've definitely educated the wider public who are passing by of this issue, that again, this whole industry operates in secrecy a lot of the time. People aren't aware, so I think, as well as legally disrupting Stericycle, we have created quite a bit of awareness with people around the area.
Yeah, it's interesting you said, going back to the thing you said, what's the word you said? When you sign a petition, you do this, often it doesn't work, and some of times you need to take more drastic action to be heard.
Direct action, I guess. Direct action. So I mean, we do all those other things too. I sign petitions pretty much every day about different issues. I write to my MP all the time. She's probably a bit sick of me at this point. But I think sometimes, I'm not saying those things don't ever work, but sometimes you need to take direct action to have a bit more of an immediate impact, I would say.
That's it. You've got a bit crackly, Catherine.
Oh, apologies. I don't know whether it was my internet connection. Apologies.
No, that's fine. So, on these protests, have you ever been on one where sort of someone's lost the shit and sort of think, fuck this, I'm going over that fence and I'm going to liberate the dogs? Have you ever been in that sort of scenario where someone's just sort of, right, let's go for it?
Not enough.
No. I think we're all very calm. We're all very calm at the protest, and it might not sound it sometimes when we're on a megaphone. It might sound that we're really angry, but actually, as soon as we come off the megaphone and someone passes by to ask us what we're doing, it's like a switch in persona. Sometimes it's really loud on the megaphone. Oh, hi, how are you doing? To the person passing by. So I'm personally, I won't speak for anyone else, but for me personally, I'm always very calm at these protests. I would never, let anyone see me in any other light. And I think you have got to try and keep your cool sometimes at these places. So I don't know whether Sarah thinks differently.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think sometimes people do get emotional, people do get angry and upset, especially when you're, outside somewhere like MBR itself. It's easy to get overcome with that sort of emotion, but at the end of the day, what we do, it has to be sustainable in terms of we've got to be able to come back and do it next week. If we do something crazy and we get arrested, we go to jail or whatever, you know, then it means we can't carry on doing what we're doing. So you do just have to sort of have a word with yourself and just crack on and do things as calmly and as kind of sensibly as you can, really. You know, it's difficult though.
It's some sort of a double-edged sword, because like you could do more damage to the cause than good if you're sort of like, right, I'm gonna go over the fence and start kicking off.
Yeah, exactly. If you got really angry and you thought, oh, I'm going to go punch that person, you know, I think there's probably occasions where we'd all quite fancy doing that, but that's not going to do any good for anything, is it? So you do just have to be sort of mindful of your actions and what you're doing, definitely.
I think that's easier said than done. If I was
on our side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's easier said than done, because if I was at MBR and I heard them like screaming and crying, I don't know how I'd be. But I still want to go there. But
I think you should. Yeah, it's
yeah. As I say, I want to do a documentary. It'll be only a short one for like 15-20 minutes, but just to show the public, or as many people as like we can, to see, look, this is going on.
Yeah, that we need to get the word out there, you know, and we need as many people as possible to one, know about it, and two, do something about it. We've got the big protest on the 26th of April, midday, and it's in honour of World Day for Animals in Labs. This year it's being held at MBR Acres. So we need as many people as possible there on the day to sort of really sort of stand together in solidarity against this horrible place, and also show the government that, you know, how many people are against it, don't want this sort of thing. And really hopefully sort of have an impactful day and make some change out of it. But 26th of April, we need as many people there as possible.
That's a Sunday, isn't it?
I think it might be a Saturday, actually.
Is it? Let me have a look. Yeah, because it's Peanut's birthday. Because I was going to go there, but I can't. I sort of know it's a bit contradictory, but it's his.
I think some people are bringing their dogs.
It is a Saturday,
that might be a bit, you know, depends on the dog, I suppose. But I think some people are bringing their own dogs.
I won't get a moment's peace. Yeah. Peanut will just want to smell every dog, say hello to everyone, probably go to MBR and see all them dogs as well. So,
but, I mean, if you can't make it, definitely go another day and see for yourself, and then just help us get the word out, you know.
Yeah, I just want to go back to when I was saying to Catherine mentioned it about you have a relationship with dogs and then this takes you on to other relationship. In the job I do, I sometimes got to go to Hull, and at Hull they've got a place called Cranswick Food, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but Cranswick Food have also got a slaughterhouse there. So I often pass the slaughter vans with the cows and pigs, and as I said to Sarah before we started, this podcast, that I still eat meat, but going past them, looking in and seeing them and looking them in the eye, I relate that to Peanut, and I'm like, that's fucking horrible. It's I feel a bit ashamed of myself, but so
especially,
I've been
go on, didn't mean
to. I don't think I could be a vegan because I think that'd be too hard for me, but I've definitely been contemplating doing vegetarianism.
Give it a go, because like pigs, for example, obviously we've been talking a lot about dogs tonight, and it's very easy to get attached to dogs and love dogs and see them for the sort of intelligent and emotional animals they are, but pigs are even more intelligent and have even more sort of social interactions with their family members, and they have their own friends, they have their, you know, they have these relationships with each other. So if you can sort of see that in a dog, you know, it's so easy to see it in a pig as well. I think some animals are slightly harder, you know, sheep, they've got those weird eyes, but they do you know what I mean? That it's harder to relate to sheep maybe than a pig or a dog, but they too, you know, have emotions, they have the ability to suffer, and ultimately they don't want to die, they don't want to be exploited and used and sent down the line to be slaughtered, So, and it's so easy, honestly, it's so easy these days to be vegetarian, but it's still easy to be vegan as well. Honestly, we've been doing it for years, haven't we, Kat? It's no big deal these days. So many alternatives. It's great. It's great being vegan now.
How sort of do you find the vegan diet on like health?
Sorry, what was that?
I mean, I'm a did you say on health?
Yeah, how sort of do you find the vegan diet on like health? You really are crackly, Kat. I don't know if you can hear that, Sarah, or it just might be mine.
Only a little bit, yeah. You're cutting out a little bit. But Kat's a unit.
I can hear you both fine. Yeah, so I heard you both. I hope you can hear me. But I mean, I'm a powerlifter. I'm a competitive athlete, and I've been vegan for about 4.5 years now. And even before then, I was largely plant-based. So I've been vegetarian my whole life. I grew up vegetarian, was largely plant-based for a lot of that, and then went strict vegan about 4.5 years ago. So it's absolutely fine. There's no nutrient that you can't get in plant-based products that you can get from meat. So it's I guess if you're new to being vegan, you probably have to do a bit of research in terms of where you get certain nutrients from. But there's no reason why you can't be fully healthy. And I think when you look at the research and the statistics, you'll find that most people on a vegan diet are usually healthier. They eat a wider range of foods. They, since going vegan, sort of opened up their sort of I guess the meals that they cook, and it's made them think about other things that they could eat, and it's actually made them eat sort of a wider variety of different foods in a sense. But yeah, as a competitive powerlifter, I've not had any issues, not with protein, which is always the big one that we get asked about. But yeah, I don't know if Sarah wants to add more to that.
I'm not a competitive powerlifter, but having said that, I do try and keep healthy and work out and keep fit, and I've never felt better, to be honest. It's just easy these days. I went vegan, about 18 years ago, and it was a lot harder back then, I'd say. So now it's just, I don't know, I feel spoiled going into the shops. There's so many things you can buy, or so many things, you can cook. It's, honestly, easy.
Yeah, I like. Do you wear leather then, or is that?
No.
Sorry.
No.
No. I mean, I know that's part of the vegan, and I know certain people. I know certain people are pescatarians, so like they won't eat sort of meat, but they'll eat fish, vice versa. And some vegans won't eat this and drink that, but they'll still maybe wear. But like, I like to you two go the full on thing.
Yeah. Well, the definition
veganism to me is the full. Yeah, go on. No, I was going to say the definition too. Sarah, you go for it on the definition. Yeah,
let's say it in unison. Well, the definition of veganism is doing what everything you can to avoid suffering as far as possible, right? So we don't have to eat any animals, we don't have to wear any animals, all this sort of thing. So I don't know, I suppose some people might have a pair of old leather shoes that they had before they were vegan and they still wear that. I mean, really, I'm not gonna judge them on that, to be honest with you, whatever. But it is just doing as much as practically as possible. And these days, to go the sort of, to use a horrible phrase, the whole hog is easy. We don't have to eat any non-vegan food, wear anything, it's easy to go the whole way.
I think if you're vegan, you should chuck all your leather stuff away. I don't know if that's my autistic brain working like that, but I think it's like, well, if you're going to do it, just do it. And that's why I think...
I wouldn't feel comfortable wearing any skin,
no.
But if somebody, I don't know, somebody hasn't got much money or whatever, in this day and age, think about the planet, all that sort of thing, that people find ways of justifying keeping old leather products.
I'm sorry. If you're vegan, you've got to stick by you. You can always.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean,
it's like it's their choice, but you can always go to Windsor World of Shoes and buy. I mean, like Adidas and Nike all do the canvas, the hemp like the like pure leather stuff now. They're sort of
you're sounding like a vegan. You're sounding already there, mate.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I was going to say I think the priority sometimes is getting people who aren't vegan to sort of move towards that. And I agree with Sarah. I personally don't wear leather. I'm vegan, and I don't have any old leather stuff that I had from before that. But I am a bit more like it's a personal choice for me in terms of that. In terms of if they've had something leather from 10 years ago and it's not worn out yet. If it's a financial issue or whatever, I agree sort of with Sarah on that I wouldn't personally judge, but I think probably the bigger priority is getting people who are not vegan to make that connection. And I think when you talked about the slaughterhouses earlier, that's something that we do in this area too. We do sort of vigils at slaughterhouses, and we're trying to get more and more non-vegans to go to them just to see the impact, because it's another industry that, most people don't see slaughterhouses every day. They don't see slaughterhouse footage. So it's a big disconnect, I would say, between, having your meal, eating on the evening and, not realising really how that animal might have suffered or will have suffered to get onto your plate. So, I think that's a big priority, as well as just getting people to make that connection.
It sort of definitely is, because like you said about people aren't seeing much footage. I read a story, I think it was last year, and I sort of wasn't aware of this. I just thought the sort of bled pigs out, but apparently they put them in some sort of gas chamber where the gas up now.
It's horrible. Awful footage. Pignorant's a good documentary to watch on that, actually. You can find Pignorant on Amazon Prime, and that came out about a year ago, and it goes into detail on the sort of the methods of killing pigs and how pigs are kept in the UK. But yeah, they are sent down gas chambers, and it is pretty horrifying to hear and see that.
No, I don't. Sorry, Sarah, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say quickly that people think, they just get put to death with some gas, and that sounds quite relaxing and nice, actually. But it's not. It takes them minutes to minutes and minutes to die. And in that time, they're kicking and they're really struggling. And you can imagine, struggling to breathe before you're suffocated to death. That's not a nice way to go. That's probably worse than getting your throat cut, really. You know what I mean? I mean, they're both horrible, but it's not a pleasant way to go at all.
There's 2 points. There's like one point, and I know we haven't mentioned it, but I find it very sort of dictionary, and it's not really about this, but it's people who complain about halal meat and like normal meat. I'm like at a stance of, well, if you eat meat, you can't really complain on how the animal dies. Because you've still got the end product. So I'm still a meat eater, and it's contradictory, but I'm like, well, I can't really moan how one's killed and one's not killed, because it's still the same product.
It's all horrible. Yeah, I think sometimes when people moan about halal meat and stuff, it's quite thinly veiled racism. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing to actually care about all the other animals that are dying?
I do think a lot of people use it as an excuse, and it's fine. Some cultures don't mix with other cultures, but to use something like that, it's like, come on, man, you're fucking eating a burger. Does it matter?
Exactly. You're hardly a champion of animal rights because you're moaning about halal. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's annoying.
And there's a lot of focus on how they're killed, but not how they live. And I think if you look at how the percentage of animals who are living in industrialized farms, factory farms, I feel like I might have this stat slightly out, but I think it's in the 70% in the UK. So about 76% of animals are factory farmed just in the UK, and that number is higher in other countries as well. So I think in the US, it's 99% of farmed animals are in factory farm systems. So if people are that concerned about how the animal's being killed, I should hope they extend that to, how are they living before they actually get to that slaughterhouse. But fully agree with you both there that, being killed is being killed regardless of the method. And I don't think we should vilify one method over another. We should just get people to try and make that connection to not kill them at all.
I think some people use that as like a scapegoat to show their unwillingness for certain aspects, like, Sarah mentioned racism and things like that. What would you say to people that would say, well, cows, chickens and pigs are only sort of here for our consumption because they serve no other purpose? Pigs maybe not so, because they come from boar, so they're wild, but for cows and things like that?
I mean, I just disagree with that completely. I think all animals deserve to live, live a life that's free from sort of pain and suffering. I just, I just don't believe that they've been put on this earth for us. I just completely stand against that statement. But I think if you consider, how we're breeding them into existence to live in terrible conditions before slaughtering them, no one can ever argue that any of that is natural. Like everything we do is very, very unnatural when you look at, how they're bred, how they live, how they're killed. But yeah, I just completely stand against that statement. So
yeah, you bring up a good point. It's like when you said wearing skin, it's like if you actually think about it, and you actually think I'm actually eating flesh of a dead being, I'm wearing the skin, which I didn't really relate to. I mean, I knew it was leather. I know where it comes from, but when you say it like that,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
odd,
like, what am
isn't
I
it?
actually doing?
It's like something out of a horror film, literally. Yeah. But yeah, it's when you make that connection and you think, yeah, this is somebody that I'm eating, or this is somebody that I'm wearing, and somebody that didn't want to die. And what was I going to say? I would rather these animals were never born in the first place if they're just going to be, bred and they're born to suffer and then they're killed. There's this idea that, oh well, we're going to get overrun by cows. I mean, well, we're not. But I don't think an animal should be bred and then born just for us to use and exploit. It's not right.
No, definitely. Well, so like we're sort of going off track a bit, but what about sort of cases where like deer need culling because like sort of like the deer would devastate the plants and the trees and like sort of like they breed quite fast. What do you say to them sort of people that say, well, we need to cull the deer, or it's just going to be carnage?
Yeah, this is a
human
bit.
interference. Sorry, Sarah, you go first. You go.
Sorry, I keep talking over you, don't I? Well, I was going to say just briefly, this isn't something I'm an absolute expert on, but I was actually having this conversation the other day with somebody, because it is one where you do think, okay, well, yeah, what would happen? But apparently, you can give animals like deer like an oral contraceptive now. It sounds kind of silly, but you can give them a contraceptive that stops them breeding so much. Or breeding at all, which is actually the ideal solution. So you don't have to lethally, you have to kill them. You can just stop them from having so many offspring, which it would be the perfect solution, wouldn't it?
Playing devil's advocate. what people say? Well, you're playing with nature. Then you're sort of.
But we are anyway. I would say that human interference is the big problem here. So it tends to be when humans don't interfere that nature sort of sorts itself out. But human interference causes a lot of these issues in the first place. I also just think it's really hypocritical when, as humans, we cause so much damage to the planet, to the environment, to then vilify other animals for doing something that is very minor in comparison to human destruction. So there's I guess that's the other part that I think needs to be raised. We call certain animals pests because of whatever they do, but actually when you look at human behaviour and interference with the planet, with wildlife, with the environment, we are the biggest pests on the planet, in my opinion.
What do you guys think of zoos? What's like your views on zoos? Because I don't agree in zoos, and I don't agree in aquariums. Like we've got one in Hull. Well, I mean, I don't live in Hull. I live about half an hour away, but we've got one called the Deep, and I was all into zoos and like the Deep. But the one thing that put me off this place, the Deep, was the penguin enclosure, and it looked like an old shitty swimming pool with sort of like pasty pastel coloured walls, and all these penguins like sort of walking around, and they were just like zombies. They were just like lemons going up, swimming around, going back up. And I really like penguins race, but I just wondered what your views on zoos are.
Go on, you can take this one, Kat.
Yeah, completely against zoos as well. I think that is going back to that sort of definition of veganism about rejecting animal exploitation. A lot of people think veganism is just a diet, and it's just what you eat. But I think what you brought up earlier about wearing leather, going to zoos, rejecting aquariums, like all of that. We've got to reject all forms of animal exploitation as far as reasonably possible, of course. So yeah, completely against zoos. Like a lot of people, I went to zoos when I was younger, and my parents sort of came around that was an issue later on. And yeah, I've never been to a zoo probably since I was a child. I think rescues are a little bit different. You know, if rescues and sanctuaries, especially if animals can't be released into the wild, then that's a little bit different. But I think there's an issue as well with certain places, like saying they're a sanctuary or saying they're a rescue, but actually, when you dig deep, that might not be the case. So yeah, I think doing research on places and seeing what their ethics are before visiting somewhere is really important.
I think rescue would be the only one that I could sort of get to grips with, purely because we mentioned halfway through the podcast or just at the beginning about monkeys come through Manchester Airport, this and that come through. So I think if we not say, but if like that would be classed as a good rescue, because I'd rather have that animal surviving, but it would have to be a good place. Not this one where it's got like a 10 metre by 10 metre fucking cage, but that would be better than ending up in a lab suffering.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've got Monkey World in Dorset, which is pretty decent. They've got lots of sort of rescued apes and monkeys that, you know, can't go anywhere else, or monkeys that have been kept as pets and stuff. So yeah, Monkey World down here is pretty good. And I used to volunteer at the Monkey Sanctuary in Cornwall. That's another good one that sort of rescues monkeys that can't really go anywhere else. So yeah, there's definitely a place for rescue places. You know, these animals need to go somewhere. But yeah, a lot of zoos, it's all just sort of fake. What's the word? What am I trying to say? You know, that they're trying to make out that they're doing lots of great work.
Bullshit. That's the word you're looking for.
we got the Oceanarium in Bournemouth, and that's a load of shit. Yeah, it's they got penguins there, and they, just a tiny little enclosure and all sad looking. And Kat, what was the number of animals that have died at the Oceanarium in the last 4 years? Do you remember?
It was around the 3,500 mark. I think between 2019 to 2023, it was 3,500 something. Yeah. That was, so we were doing a lot on the Oceanarium campaign in the summer months. It goes a bit quieter in winter at the Oceanarium in Bournemouth, so we'll be picking it back up, I think, at some point. But yeah, that we had a banner with the number of deaths on there, and that was actually through a freedom of information request from the Oceanarium itself, so we know it was an accurate number. And that, I think, shocked a lot of people when they saw that banner outside and were planning to go in and said, actually, we're going to do something else. And there's so much to do in Bournemouth. I just think, why would you go to the Oceanarium?
That's insane, because that's 4 years and that's over 3,000 deaths.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Did like you find out what animals there were that died? What was there a bigger percentage of what's, you know, give us an example?
We had a breakdown. I can't really remember the statistics off the top of my head, to be honest, but we did have a breakdown of the different animals that had died and some of the issues that had happened. So I think, if I remember right, there was certain fish held in a holding tank with the wrong sort of water or the wrong something, and they died in the holding tank. But I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head. I don't know if Sarah can remember any.
No, I can't either, I'm afraid. This was a few months ago we were sort of working on this. But claims, that's the word I was trying to think of. Lots of places, you know, make sort of these claims about all the amazing stuff they're doing for the environment and for animals, and a lot of it is it's just nonsense. So I think I'm not a supporter of zoos, but I think some are slightly better than others in terms of conservation work they might be a part of. That's not really me defending them, but some are slightly better than others. I used to live in Blackpool. That zoo is a dump. So I think some are definitely better than others. But yeah, generally, I'm against the idea of exhibiting animals for entertainment. You know, that's wrong in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. And like everything we've talked about today, from the trainers, the leather, the skin, the MBR, it's all got a connection, and it's all to do with money.
Yeah, exactly. It's putting animal lives putting profit above animal lives, which it's just awful when you actually stop and think about it. In this day and age, when we don't need to use animals for experiments, when we don't need to eat them, you know, why are we doing this stuff? And it's usually because somebody's making money out of it, and we just want to stop those people doing that.
I mean, one thing that surprised me, I only found out about maybe three years ago, that vegans don't have honey. There's some vegans that don't have honey because it's processed through the animal, and certain beers as well because it's fermented through sheep stomachs, like etc.
Yeah, it's a complete rejection, I guess, of all animal products. Yeah, it does include maybe products that you wouldn't think about so much, and we don't hear about that too much. But I was doing some outreach a few months ago, and usually when people are talking about the reasons that they can't go vegan, or you know, they perceive they can't go vegan, usually cheese comes up a lot. That's the big one, or bacon. But a guy did say, oh, I really couldn't give up honey, which I thought was crazy because there's actually so many alternatives like agave syrup, you know, maple syrup, whatever, that really has the same effect as honey. So it doesn't come up too much, I guess, in outreach, but occasionally someone does talk about honey as something that they can't give up.
No, I mean, bacon is sort of like the main one that comes up. Nearly everyone who turns sort of vegetarian or like sort of vegan, they like say it's bacon. It's the smell of the bacon. It's
crazy because I mean, I've been vegetarian my whole life, so I've never had, you know, the real bacon. But every time I cook sort of the sort of fake bacon, because they've got so many brands doing it now, people always comment, oh yeah, your flat smells of bacon, and so I think you know, I'd imagine it has the same smell. And I think a lot of those fake meats, if someone is struggling with that transition, fake meats can be a good way to I guess try something new, and you get in the same sort of taste, texture. A lot of them have come a long way in the sort of past 10 years. But not having the suffering associated with it. So definitely give the sort of fake bacons a try if needed.
Corn's a good one to have. To like what you said, it's like sort of if you made someone like a spag bowl with like steak mince or mince, and then you use corn, I think it'd be hard to tell.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the only thing with some corn products, they're not all vegan, so they are all vegetarian, but some of them do have egg in them. So that's the only thing to watch out with the corn products. But yeah, they are, I guess, I want to say they're like the original sort of like fake meat sort of brand. But yeah, there's so many more now as well to try. There really is options out there.
I would say that corn is like nowhere near as nice as a lot of the other meat alternatives. It's like the old school brand, but nowadays there's a lot better on the market, I'd say.
Yeah, I was going to say corn's like sort of a different one. Just one last point before we move on. What like do you say to people who say, well, you're still killing animals through like, you know, the soya you're growing, the plants you're growing, the things you harvest, you're still going to hurt the animals like insects? What's your reaction to that? Because I've heard that brought up a few times in the last few years.
I feel like, well, again, veganism is about doing minimal harm as possible, but the whole soy thing does particularly annoy me because they have this impression that we're destroying the rainforest through our soya milk that we have, but actually the vast majority of soy is fed to livestock, it's fed to farmed animals, because obviously animals, before they're slaughtered, have to eat something. So we could actually, you know, if people are genuinely concerned about things like crop deaths, by going vegan, you're actually having the least amount of harm because you're eating crops and plants directly rather than feeding them to an animal first, who is then slaughtered for you to eat. So yeah, I think, you know, it's about doing minimal harm, and actually veganism does do that. It is the minimum amount of harm caused. So if you are concerned about crop deaths, if you're concerned about soy production, just know that you're contributing to that more by eating meat and by eating dairy and eggs.
I was going to say, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that you're doing the best you can to save the animals. I mean, you're never going to get away from killing an insect, or like, you know, if you're driving your car, you're always going to hit a bee or a fly or some sort of moth if it's nighttime.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like really, if we wanted to do the least you know, if we really wanted to not hurt anyone anytime, we would just go live in a cave, wouldn't we? But it's just not possible. When you live in a modern society, when we have to go about our daily lives, go to work or whatever, yeah, you know, you can't avoid some things, but it's literally just doing as much as you practically possibly can to not contribute to animal suffering. And like I said, it's actually quite easy these days.
100%, yeah. So if people wanted to know more, get involved, where would you want people, or like, where would you advise, should I say, people to start and where to look?
Do you mean for activism generally, or veganism in particular, or our groups?
Sort of, well, veganism and vegetarianism, and like I think people can like do their own thing there, but more or less if they wanted to say, what the fuck's going on at this place? I like, you know, want to find out more. I want to maybe, you know, go to a group. I want to go to this 26th of April day for dogs, like MBR on Saturday.
Yeah, so I mean, I co-lead like Southampton Animal Action, and even if someone's not in the Southampton area, they're more than welcome to sort of follow us on social media to gain an idea of what we're doing down here. And we also promote things like the World Day for Animals and Labs, which obviously anyone can go to nationwide. And I think, Sarah, maybe you want to say a bit about the Dorset group as well?
Yeah, what in terms of World Day on the 26th?
Yeah, and just because so Sarah's part of Dorset Animal Action as well. So we I guess we are part of like local activism groups. So yeah, there's plenty of information on our sort of social media, and yeah, particularly the World Day for Animals and Labs is obviously a nationwide thing, really. But we are promoting it through our local groups too.
I'd say a lot of sort of local groups that are sort of doing animal rights sort of campaigning have their own sort of Facebook groups. So that's rather than websites. So that's probably the first place I'd look, Facebook or Instagram, see what's going on in your area. But also I think it's important to say that if there's nothing happening, you can be the person that makes it happen. You know, you can be the person that makes these things actually sort of,
Make a group.
Yeah, make a group. You know, start a one-man protest, get your mates involved, you know, meet people and just start something happening in your area. You don't have to wait for somebody else to sort of show you what to do or tell you what to do. You can, you know, you can do it yourself.
I would like to liberate all the dogs from MBR Acres, but I think I might get into trouble.
Good luck with that. But yeah, that'd be
lovely. And it would. I'm going to put your descriptions. I'll put your descriptions in the description. What am I on about? I'll put your links in the description if that's all right with like you, Sarah, and Catherine, of both your groups. Can I just say thanks ever so much for coming on? I think you've opened my eyes to a few things. Maybe if I try vegetarianism for a week, you could both come back. I mean, not a week. I'd like to try it for a month, and then we could do a podcast again and see how it all went.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. And honestly, just message either of us if you've got any questions or you're not sure about anything. We'd be happy to advise you. But yeah, that'd be great.
Excellent stuff. Well, once again, thank you very much. Have you got anything to say, the Barrier, before we go?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Thank you. It's been great to chat.
It would be good to have you back on because I know you've got is it a protest on Saturday, Catherine? A sitting protest?
Yeah, so we've got a few things upcoming. I think the next protest we've actually got is next Friday, with Southampton Animal Action. So the not tomorrow, the week after. Right. Yeah, and we've got a few things in Bournemouth as well. So yeah.
Excellent stuff. Right then, we'll leave it there again. If anyone wants to come on the podcast, they're more than welcome, even if I don't agree with you. But please remember, it's fully free speech and it's all unedited. So everything will go out in its entirety, what you said on the podcast. Even me stuttering all the time.
Thank you.
Cool beans. Cheers, girls. Thank you very much.
See you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.